Alrighty. It's it's probably rather ridiculously warm for whatever today is, December 7th or something in Michigan, compared to how it used to be when I was a child and before, but it's still pretty chilly. My hands are getting a little chilly. The other day it started snowing and I was like, time to go. Wet, rainy snow. Let's see. Oh, that's interesting, huh? I have these Invisaligns. They're all done, actually, complete. It's amazing. It's been over a year how fast that went. Every 10 days we switch those out because for many years, since a long time, my back teeth would grind on themselves. I never felt it, but when I would go into the dentist, they would tell me, and I'm like, I'm not really grinding my teeth, and especially these days, much less stress and things, it doesn't make sense. And finally, I went to a biological dentist, which you may not have heard the term, but Google biological dentist or holistic dentist, and they use more cutting-edge technology with higher standards, basically. They don't use as toxic of materials. They use things like they'll put you on a vitamin IV or antioxidant IV or things while they're doing work in the mouth, different things to help support the body. And this one that I found it's like one of two in all of India, they use Invisalign, these plastic little retainer thingies. Every 10 days you change it, and slowly it changed the shape of my jaw, so I'd adjust it so now it doesn't grind it anymore. So thank you very much, Dent Alley. I appreciate that. I was not interested in getting a root canal. I've not heard good things about those anywhere. So, yeah. Relationships, romance, sexuality, dating. I don't really know how to speak on this one exactly. It came up as it will when I'm in retreats. Actually, this last week wasn't a retreat. It was very just relaxed. It was just a large house in the Maryland area, a monk who's been a monk for 48 years, Theravada Buddhist monk, and he's American. There was a South Korean nun and a few other lay people like me, and just a wonderful, relaxed Dhamma environment, wholesome. We would meditate together a couple times a day, meditate on our own, do some reading of books that were in that same vein, and nice, relaxed conversations, and just like that. It was really peaceful and tranquil, very nice. And yeah, when I came back to here, my childhood hometown, the next day, which was like 3 days ago, I was just so feeling all of this like anxiety and sadness and all these different sorts of things, which as my practice, as these years of being with myself and getting to know myself better has been building, now I have more sensitivity to how I actually feel. So often, I'll meet someone or talking with someone, say, how are you feeling, or what's going on, or well, how do you feel about that, and just say, I don't know, which is pretty normal because in these societies, we haven't been taught how to actually be with our feelings. We just cover them up with food or Game of Thrones or pornography or work or children or reading or whatever, being busy. So we don't actually have a relationship with them and know what is the difference between feeling gloomy and feeling hopeless and feeling anxious and feeling depressed, and what are the nuances in that, or vice versa. What is feeling good versus feeling excitedly curious on a low grade level, feeling subtle bliss, or like really strong enjoyment, or And so I've recognized in these years, these last 3 especially, after the first 15 months in India, and then after a handful of months in Portugal and Europe, and then again after these 7-8 months in India and Sri Lanka, I come back to my hometown every time, and I'm staying in these environments that I grew up in, parents' homes and apartments, and I'll feel these emotions that I felt when I was young. We pick up so much when we're young where we don't know how to handle these things, and so we create these stories unconsciously or whatever. And big ones for me were these feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, wanting to help my parents, both in the physical environment, like with their homes. My home where I grew up, it's always had lots of different projects going on that, not in a finished state. And so I would feel this stress and anxiety, one, because I wasn't in the finished environment, and so it's like uncomfortable, it's not easy to maneuver, and also because like I saw it as this big deal, like, oh, it should be finished, and I want to help them finish it, but I'm just a kid, and what can I do? And so I would try real hard, but like that's obviously not solving the deeper roots causes of why are there so many unfinished things in the home. Like that's someone's personal play issues or whatever, and just doing more stuff, there's never ending. So I would take that on a lot. I would feel this anxiety, and also with finances, like I wanted to help my parents and my siblings with finances, but again, I was young and I didn't have the money for it. And so I would just feel these like big, heavy, overwhelming feelings of gloom and hopelessness and helplessness. And as I look at it now, going back, I would guess it's a very large part of why I moved to New Orleans for college. I know directly it was one of the reasons why I moved, and then I haven't really been back since, except to visit every so often. And now in these last 3 years, I have had months and weeks at a time. Now I've been back again for like 3, it will be about 4 weeks, almost in a row. So I've gotten lots of experience feeling these feelings, and wow, okay, these are old feelings that I had forgotten existed, or hadn't had the awareness of them. And now I can see definitely it continues to reduce, like, doing these practices, just meditating in general, and then doing these more in-depth things like the retreats, and of course psychedelics in the past and things. These certainly have assisted to make it. I'm not as impacted, but I'm more aware of how I am impacted. And so at times it can feel like I'm more impacted. But in the past, I would have been partying a lot. I mean, I used to party a lot. When I come, like, that's what I would look to do, is reconnect with friends and get drunk and try to meet girls, because that was how I would handle this, to try and avoid it. Now I don't. It's beautiful because I'm in these environments, which is nothing against the environment. This is me. This is my conditioning from an early child of not knowing how to handle things, and so feeling stress about it. I'm certainly not putting down my family or my parents or anything. Like, they're wonderful people and they're doing the best that they can. But still, it's how I would feel in these environments. And as I do still sometimes, but now I have no interest in alcohol, like in even cannabis. In more recent years, I was utilizing cannabis at times, but when I think about it, like, I'll be feeling these strong emotions, like I was a couple of days ago, just really like just continually in the mind, just letting go and feeling the tension and relaxing, and feeling the tension and relaxing, and the mind going somewhere and relaxing, mind going somewhere and relaxing. And it was just non-stop. And that's just how it is sometimes with these deeper ingrained habits. Like, it takes thousands and thousands of these repetitions of letting go, don't engage, bring it back, letting go, don't engage, feeling peace, let it go, and like the mind is so used to, I'm getting all these subconscious stimuli of this environment or these sounds or these voices or these memories or whatever, like I should feel this way of anxiety. Doesn't know anxiety is good or bad or like what we want or don't want. It's like when we're in this environment, in this mind state, in this physical state, then we feel this sort of way. This is our norm. Because we had that thousands and thousands of repetitions, and so now it takes repetitions of letting it go. But when I would every so often, like rarely, in days or weeks, the mind might go to some little thought or might see some billboard or something of like, beer or drinking or smoking. And almost immediately, like it's subtle. It's not like, but it's like this subtle, like visceral reaction of, not gonna go there. Like that doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound nice. So I'm very grateful for that. But for me, as I've shared in the past, like sexuality since I was a young child has been the main escape mechanism that I've used in my life. Since what I remember, first connecting with pornography, just like on the calendars of garages of friends' dads or magazines that friends' parents had. And then when we got a computer when I was a preteen, I think, getting on there, and pretty quickly in those early years I came upon really dark, unhealthy pornography and what was Yahoo groups back then. It doesn't even exist now, but it was just these groups on Yahoo, and it was pretty untamed, and it was all this stuff that I just came upon of underage incest, rape, fantasy, extreme, rough, degrading stories and pictures and videos, and not healthy things, especially for a child with a rapidly developing brain to see, and to get exposed to like the hypersexuality, and obviously also the energy of ways of the people are on those groups and the stories and things, just this extreme sexuality combined. It's this like combination of like very heightened, obviously it's releasing all sorts of hormones and adrenaline and stuff. Obviously pornography, masturbation going together, so there's physical pleasure, but then there's mental confusion or shame or feeling bad about like what's going on, because these things, either I've been told that they're bad because we live in a society that doesn't know how to view natural sexuality as in a healthy way, but just demonizes it, or it is stuff that is like actually harmful or something, and like it's confusing. Why do so many people watch true crime shows and Game of Thrones where everyone's getting murdered and incest and all this sort of thing? Like I don't even know. I don't know like the answer. There's obviously, whether it's inherent in human nature or it's more in our societies like ours, which really idolizes violence and abuse and unhealthy sexual and romantic relationships, but gives this like mixed message of saying, it's terrible that people are raped and abused and beaten and robbed. By the way, let's go watch movies about it all the time and make tons of movies about it and sing about it in the pop songs, but that's terrible, like don't like it. But like so it's confusing mixed messages that we get in these sorts of amoral or immoral societies that are focused more on finance and individual benefit than they are on like how will this affect others or what's the long-term impact. So since I was a child, that as I learned or gained insight, maybe even in this dark room, this most recent one, I recognized like sexuality, like when I was young, fantasy, masturbation, pornography, these things, it was like a safe space for me, because I had a very fortunate and positive childhood in many ways, and also there was lots of stress and anxiety and challenge, especially at certain periods. And so I would read lots and lots of books, and then I also had this very strong sexual habit, whatever. And I recognized that is a place, like when we use any of these extremes, extreme sports, or really working just totally focused on our job, or driving fast, or getting in fights, or doing drugs, or getting drunk, or eating lots of food, or making some big deals about whatever it is, like making all this drama or whatever. Getting super into these passions is like, it brings us into the present moment so that the mind is not ruminating on the past or the future, which is what meditation does, like that's the main thing. Like, I mean, there's many types of meditation, but the meditation that I practice is like continually be present here. Suffering comes from thoughts of the past or future, like just be present with the experience, but most of us aren't taught that, and so we use these other ways that subsequently turn into being unhealthy. And I recognize that is what happened as a child, and I didn't know that it was unhealthy. I thought it was, like it's just exploring and it's exciting and it's all that sort of things. So anyway, I've shared about this before, so I won't go much deeper. But thankfully, so my dating, my romance, my relationships, and my sexuality has really grown a lot in these last years as I've been working on myself, both with meditation and psychedelics and retreats and things, and also some like specific workshops and courses that are based around sexuality and relationships, and then also with several really wonderful relationships, like the last two that I've been in. Each one was 2 years, and this last one was 15 months, and really being able to work together with another wonderful person who takes ownership for themselves, practices communication, not projection. So, we're feeling some sort of challenging emotion, or we're feeling hurt or sad or betrayed or fearful or whatever. We don't like project it onto the other and say like, oh, what's wrong with you? Why would you do this or whatever? Instead, we communicate like, I'm feeling this right now. You said this or that. You might not have meant it this way, but I'm feeling this right now because of my own thing, or because in the past I had this happen before and it went this way, or, I'm just feeling stressed out. We can communicate about that, and then we can move forward. And so, I'm really pleased and happy and grateful for where I am, where I seem to be, when it comes to the majority of a relationship. It's definitely not perfect, as I'll share more, but the large majority of it, it seems, and from the feedback that I have received, is much healthier than I was before. And same with sexuality, like in interpersonal sexuality. That being said, I do still have this unhealthy, addictive habit that arises generally so far when hasn't done it in the East at all. generally when I'm in the US and generally when I'm in child at home, of getting online. And in the last several years, it's been going to these online chat rooms, which I didn't even really know chat rooms existed. I never used them when I was young. I thought that was just like a thing of the 2000s, but like, I'm not going to say much more because I don't want it to be some sort of like intriguing thing that people go to, because these places are not healthy at all. And if I could do it, I would definitely close them down. They're legal and they're just sexual chat rooms. And, by the whatever freedom of speech, like, you can do it. But these places are toxic. I can't imagine how many people's lives they have, some just destroyed by bringing in things that, subsequently they get arrested, or they go down paths that they harm themselves or others, or just really destroy their self-esteem even more by the way people interact and stuff. They're just places of, I feel so much compassion for these people, because basically everyone, and I would go on there, like I said, it's something that I use as an escape. Sometimes I just drop into it, and it would be like days, just hours at a time on these chat rooms, just being sexual interactions with people, chatting, doing that sort of stuff, just basically staying stimulated. It's the same as like Instagram or others, just continual swiping and scrolling, and like, it's not even like, there's all kinds of stuff tied into it, loneliness and not wanting to be with the moment, and obviously the dopamine rewards response, and like, it's like a gambling thing. You're like continually pulling the slot machine and losing, and then a win, and then a lose. It's just like, psychology's done a bunch of studies on this, so I won't go into it further. But these places, everybody's experienced some sort of sexual abuse or rape or incest or early childhood sexual experience, even if it wasn't abusive, but like, we grew up in a culture where they didn't know how to integrate it, and so it twisted into this unhealthy thing. And it's actually like, it's wild, because these things that are being discussed and what these people have experienced, hopefully most people that are watching this have no idea that this stuff really exists, but it's wild what so many of these people have experienced or are actually doing or experiencing right now, of all ages, but it's not uncommon for those people, like, to say, or at some point or another, like, they're coming there for community because they're in a society where these things have happened, or they're just having these thoughts or whatever, like, not because they're some sick, twisted person, but just like, we have all different sorts of thoughts and experiences throughout the day, and we don't get taught how to integrate them, or we get, these really unhealthy messages about them, and people don't know how to deal with them, so they repress them or they suppress them. And whenever we suppress or repress or ignore or avoid anything, it only gets worse. It's like, these are principles that apply across. So if you get cut and you don't do anything about it, and it gets infected and you just deny it, it only gets worse. It doesn't get better. And it's the same with the psychological. And so these sorts of people, they don't have like people that they can talk about these sorts of things, which aren't actually that big of things if they're just handled in a healthy, loving, accepting, like, let's be a little intentional, and this is how you purify your mind, and like that. But they don't have anyone to talk to, and so they come to these places for community because they feel lonely and stuff, and they feel like they can't talk about these things publicly with others. Yeah, it's a trip. It's a super trip. So that is still one challenge that I have, and I've decided to continue. Like, that's another part of the reason why I am. It's like a nice side benefit of intending to head to Taiwan and China to explore Qigong and Neigong and these energy arts as something that can support the meditation practice, where I can do it in a more secluded or monastic or environment. It's not like doing lots of stretches and getting all sweaty or things. And it will also help me connect more with the energetic body, this thing that exists Like, what is the energy in my body? How do I work with this? Besides just, thinking all calories give energy or something, But also in China and India and Tibet, they've had traditions and practices for thousands of years that work with the sexual energy. And not just like, oh, let's go do sex stuff or the Kama Sutra or things like that, but like the actual energy. Like, how do I work with when I'm feeling very stimulated, or I'm feeling very like strong sexual urges, or I'm not feeling sexual urges, like at inappropriate times, basically, like I'm with my partner all the time, but I'm not feeling sexual, or I'm going through work and life and stuff, but I am feeling very sexual and it's not appropriate. Like, how do we work with that energy to bring it into balance? And even in later practices, how do we take that energy from the sexual focus and move it up into like a more loving space, or into a more consciousness, creative expression space? And yeah, I'm grateful. It feels like a very nice time to be exploring and connecting with these Chinese practices for multiple reasons, but part of it is because, yet again, I come back after very deep, wonderful, tranquil, spiritual, psychological experiences, and I come back into these places where I have old patterns, and I realize that yes, these old patterns to some degree still exist. They've changed every time, and they're evolving and, being more integrated every time. And also they're still there, and they're still unhealthy, and they're still often quite dangerous, to just be giving this amount of time and energy to something like that. And sometimes feeling almost out of control, of just like the mind just doesn't care. It's like, I'm just going to do this, whether or not, I know that it's harmful. And so it's feeling like, all right, we've been giving a good amount of time over these last years to meditation, which is just purifying and assisting everything. And the results have been very great, especially in most of the areas of my life. So many areas are so much more improved than they were before. And sexuality, this thing that has been with me for many, many, many years, since I was a child and exposed to these deep, challenging, traumatic experiences on the internet and things. This has been a challenge, and it continues to be a challenge. And so let's give more dedicated focus to it, both because I'm interested in purifying and letting go of and integrating the darkness, and also strengthening and empowering and expanding the light, which I have been experiencing in relationships and partnerships and things, which I will chat more about on this next one. So that's a little bit about, what's been happening. And I'll share a little bit more now specifically about relationship and things.